Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am your host, Alina Conley, here today with the Buckeye Review, and we are joined by a very special guest. Probably needs no introduction, a truly inspiring guest who has put smiles and laughs on our face from across the country. He is a legend, a world in the world of comedy. But most recently, he has wrote a book, which many of you all have probably heard about. And so we want to welcome today Rickey Smiley to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yes, yes. I am so excited to have this conversation today because, we know you for comedy, obviously. We are very familiar with your radio show. I've listened to it since I was a child on the way to school. I know
On the
you're
school
probably
bus.
look on the school bus cracking up. And so, I was excited to even just have this opportunity to chat with you. But my background really is in the space of I'm a coach, and so I work with people all the time around grief and life coaching. And so to be able to really see this space where you transition and into writing about these things in your book around grief and coping and gratitude and kind of evolving yourself into this next phase with this tragic loss of your son Brandon. It was just a very different view of you, but I also felt like the vulnerability was really needed, especially from a Black male that is such a pillar in our community. So, first of all, I just want to thank you for really being a champion for mental health through this book.
No, thank you. Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, you started off your book, Sideshow, with a very personal moment of grief, the loss of your son. What led you to really open up your book, just kind of going right in with this story?
I was just sitting around with some friends that's in the industry, and I was sharing my story, and they all said, "Hey, um, because I had some perspective. It was like, you should write a book. It would definitely help a lot of people. There's a lot there." So we just started the process and made it happen.
Yeah. One of the things that you talk about a lot is how you have a very rooted faith in the Black church, and your upbringing was always in the church, going to the church. And we know that this story is the same for many of us. But you also mentioned how you started to go to therapy. And more recently, we started to see the intersection of those two things, right? So, Black faith and therapy. And so it feels like we're finally in a space where, as Christians, we are starting to consider mental health something that goes beyond just being able to pray it away. And I felt like I heard you talk about that a lot throughout the book. So, do you feel like there's a difference between your healing between just going to church and also having to go to therapy? And what was the difference between the two for you?
The difference between the two is almost like uh two of the same things, but different. Going to church and I talk about this a lot in the book, making sure that people have get a relationship with God, because during times like these, and when you're dealing with that kind of tragedy, you really have to lean on God. But in the meantime, getting the help that you need for your trauma.
Hmm.
As well, if it's an ankle, you would go to the ER for them to snap your ankle back in place, because your ankle can heal, but it could also heal wrong,
Hmm.
right? So we definitely want to go to therapy for our mind. And there's a stigma in the Black community of not getting the help that you need for your trauma. And we carry all of these feelings, emotions, and pain, and it just come out in so many different, different ways. And we just try to keep it moving and pass it on by and bury ourselves in work and activities, and not taking the time to properly grieve.
Yeah, absolutely. For me personally, the first time that I ever really took therapy seriously was when I was expecting my second child. I'm a mom of four, but I went through a period of postpartum depression after my first son. And so I decided to go to therapy because I read or I had come to realize through some research that as a woman, I could actually pass down that generational trauma that you speak of to my
Mhm.
granddaughter, right?
Right.
Because women are born with the amount of eggs that they're going to have. So the time that I was pregnant with my daughter, she also possesses the eggs for my grandchildren, right? And so any type of stress that I'm dealing with during my pregnancy is going to affect her or him through this concept of epigenetics, right? And so I was like, I don't want to impact them through this generational trauma. Now, what I didn't know when I was doing this research is that something very similar also happens with men, right? It also is this thing called epigenetics, where the sperm is impacted by stress and trauma. And so when you talk about generational trauma or addiction being passed down, that is a very real thing. And so my question to you is, and this may be something that, you may have to even pause on, but if you had to go back and think about any decisions that you may have made or choices, knowing that anything that we do during certain times, whether it's our diet, maintaining our mental health, the speed at which we move through life can impact generations to come. What are some things that you feel like you would be very mindful of?
Uh, I don't know. That's a lot. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I exercise. Uh, you know, took my children to church, make sure they had a relationship with God. I tried to do everything right. One thing about parenting, it don't come with a handbook because there's no perfect parenting. And then I would hope and pray to God that I didn't pass along anything to my sons and daughters. I don't know. That's a good question though.
Yeah, and I think that I appreciate your honesty because I think that it's something that all of us kind of take pause to when we think about, okay, we as parents know that there's only so much that we can do, but when we start thinking about the grand scheme of do we really have this impact on the next generation, it does have make us have a pause, right? When I heard your story about parenting, though, it kind of gave me this sense of relief when you talked about sometimes you've done all that you can do, right?
Hmm.
And so talk to me a little bit about, as you were raising your children and specifically Brandon, right? And I know you said around 11th grade you started to see some changes. What is some advice that you have for parents who are hitting that adolescence, middle school, high school stage, and they feel like I've done everything right? I've taken my kids to church, I've given them opportunities, and yet it feels like I'm now having to choose between my personal boundaries, which you talk a lot about, and parenting them. What is some advice that you can give for them based on your experience?
Yeah, you have to protect your peace as a parent, and only thing you can do is do the best job that you can. But we have to have a real conversation with our kids about drugs, about their surroundings, about getting involved in certain activities, because some of the things that we did as kids for fun, this particular generation, they're dying from it.
Mm,
And we just have to have open and honest and uncomfortable conversations at earlier ages. I'm meeting parents who have lost kids to suicide due to bullying,
mhm,
fentanyl, also just people that lost their kids and just sick, sick and health and freak accidents.
mhm,
Uh, but the only thing you can do is sit down and have conversations with your kids and pray for them and try to hope that when they do go out into the world that they would remember the things that they were taught. And
yeah,
that's all you could do as a parent.
yeah. I think that we're at an interesting place, especially within the Black community, where we're starting to be in a situation where we can afford more opportunities for our children that many other generations maybe could not have, whether that's education, material things. And I have had conversations with many of my mentors or maybe a generation ahead of me who've struggled with challenges between giving their children opportunities, but also this fine line between giving them too much, where they maybe don't have this, they have a sense of entitlement, or they don't have a level of work ethic, or they feel like they don't know how to go out and get it the way that maybe their generation did. Is that something that, especially with you, being a more affluent parent and raising multiple children, how do you kind of walk along that line and make sure that you're giving them opportunities that maybe you didn't have, but you're also raising, children that have autonomy in the world?
Yeah, with my boys, we get in the yard and we work. We cut the grass, we trim the hedges, we wash cars, we change our own oil.
Yeah.
It was a lot of episodes, and then on my reality show, I used to have people drag me on the internet for my discipline and my structure, which I don't regret any of it because those are my children raised in my house,
Mhm.
and I set my rules, and I don't have to do what you think I should do. Uh, I had women dragging me on the internet for making my 3-year-old grandson rake leaves and help put leaves into a bag. Like, what good is that going to do for a 3-year-old? Well, now he's an 8-year-old that opens the car door for women. He's a elite athlete, and on this football team. He make all A's and B's, and he says yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and
Mhm.
yes, sir, and no, sir, to adults. And he work hard. But what we have to do as parents, because we're so busy trying to give them everything that we did not have. And
Mhm.
my thing to what I would say to people is, if you like who you are as an adult, man or woman, then give your kids what you had as
Mm.
opposed to what you did not have.
Okay.
Right, and because you can't give them everything, and they shouldn't have everything, and they don't, and that's what breeds entitlement
Mhm.
and all of that kind of stuff. So my kids are so regular. My I got young kids and grandkids. They still drink water out of the hose pipe. I'm not running out there with ice cold bottled water and catering to them or whatever. I operate like a coach. I
Mhm.
operate like a football coach that's coaching. I talk to them with a little sense of heaviness. I'm soft when they sick. If they sick or they're sad, that's one thing. Or it's nighttime, time to cuddle, go to bed. That's one thing. But like, hey, come over here. Hey, come here. Hey, go do this. I'm very, with my instructions to them. So they won't grow up being sensitive. If somebody say no to them, they'll
Mhm.
spaz out, and or start thinking suicide because somebody told them no.
Right.
So I let them feel some resistance, and go outside and ride your bicycle and fall, scratch your knee up, get up, you're fine. Come on, put a band-aid on it, run the hose pipe on the little scar on your knee, keep going. So I present a certain kind of toughness. Because one thing about my son, rest in peace, he was tough. He worked every day. My son worked at a company that they would chop down trees, whatever you call it. That's what he did, and he did comedy. He never asked me for money. He said, "Do you have my youngest son? My son is 23. He never asked for money. He said, Dad, do you have any work for me? I need to
Mm.
make some extra money, to buy books or whatever. Do you have any yard work or anything that you need done that you could pay me for?" Because he's in grad school right now, and that's a problem
Mhm.
to a lot of women that follow me, and they don't like, why don't you just give it to him? You got it.
Mm.
Well, it's not his. He didn't write any jokes.
Mhm.
It's my resources that he need. So why shouldn't he work for what he want like I did?
Mhm.
That kind of stuff. So people get pretty mad about that. It's just a different time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that's interesting because when it comes to parenting, or even when it comes to kind of getting advice, many of us are exposed to the opinions of others on social media. As you've been going through this process of healing or comedy, how have you been able to kind of deal with the trolls or the opinions? I mean, I can only imagine that
Don't care.
filter.
Don't care. I don't care what these
Yeah.
people say. I would say something, but I'm not gonna say it. But you know what we'll say in the hood against a hater?
Yeah.
It's two words that we'll use, and I mean it. I don't care about what people say or what they think. You would drive yourself crazy. You would never be able to be who you are, worried about what everybody think or
Yeah.
whatever. I made a video on TikTok and I just politely went down the hall with my phone with all the college degrees on my wall in my basement, and it went viral. And
Mm-hmm.
people said, wow, that's a real flex. Not a car,
Mm-hmm.
not a house. Everybody that was raised in this house, my kids, nieces, and nephews, all of the degrees that's on the wall, but they have graduated from prestigious universities,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And sometimes you don't win with all of them. Some of them decide to go down a different road for their own purposes.
Yeah.
But my son, I didn't drink over here. I didn't smoke over here. He was not abused or mistreated over here. And some of the stuff, some of our youth that have passed away or they locked up or whatever are because of the decisions that they have made.
Mm.
Nothing to do with what we did. I feel bad that my son has passed away, but I don't feel bad for a reason because my son came back today. My boundaries would be the same. My rules would be the same. I'm not changing. And I had to protect my peace because I dealt with that for 11 years. I had to protect my peace to raise my other children. That was actually buying what I was teaching.
Mm. That's interesting. As a mom of four, I often struggle with giving too much to one that does have the mental health challenges. And you hear that with a lot of parents who deal with children who, maybe are dealing with depression or they're getting 90% of the parents and the other children's, their lives are centered around it. And then as they get older, they begin to resent the family because of that. They're like, my whole childhood was on us trying to get him resources, right?
Sure. Mhm.
So I think that that is something that we have to kind of think about as we're raising our children is we do have other children in the house that are being impacted by this.
Absolutely.
Um, but I think that even to your point around social media, as someone who I do think that our children, and I don't even want to call them children, but I'll say our youth are being impacted by social media, right? We know, like you said earlier, the cyberbullying, the depression, the anxiety, the rise of it, even all the way up to my generation, which I'm 40, a millennial.
Mhm.
It all comes from social, the comparison, who has this, what am I doing, who has this degree, this house, this family, this husband. And so being that you're a little bit ahead of me, not to say you too much more seasoned,
Mhm.
um, you were able to kind of establish this confidence without the comparison. And
Sure.
so if someone is listening right now and, we're talking to the college students who are, they have all of the talent, but they still have that self-doubt because they're comparing themselves. What are some things that you feel like you could use to help them start to build confidence, like tools that maybe you've used in therapy or just in the confidence that you've built as a successful professional?
Oh, absolutely. Athletics, number one.
Mhm.
Athletics, fine arts
Okay.
always help with confidence because, I did sports growing up, and then I did the band, I did piano, I did it all. And so with sports and fine arts, you have to have discipline. And
Hmm.
your discipline and your structure help you with your confidence when you're being coached. And your coach, just like I took my baby to the ER this morning, or whatever, and there's gonna be to stick her with a needle to draw blood, and she was 6, and I said, hey, you're gonna be fine. I said, you're a big girl, no need to cry, it's just gonna be a pinch. And she was like, really? It's just gonna be a pinch? There's just gonna be a pinch. And she sat there and stared it down. I watched them stick a raw needle in her skin, and she didn't blink. And she looked back at me like, that's all? I'm like, yep, that's all. You know, Stuff like that helps with confidence. And if there's any single mothers out there where the father is not present, which most fathers are. You really don't hear deadbeat dads no more because that's all you see on social media is dads with their kids. Fathers are thriving. Fathers are stepping up and doing the thing. It's a new time now. Um, but get your kids with an uncle, a deacon, a coach, a principal, some male role model, even for young girls, because men give girls confidence. Just like I'm sitting here, I didn't baby her. You know what I'm saying? It is just a pinch or whatever. No need for her to spaz out in the ER. She just sat there and just took it and made the process easier and stuff like that. And that stuff like that builds kids confidence up, and then the building them up with and then the positive reinforcement, if you have to redirect or make a correction, all of this stuff is just so important, so that's why I kind of you have this whole coach around the house thing, dad, life coach, my tone around the house. They need to feel the presence of a man but also feel the love, of a man. With my grandson, granddaughters, my sons and daughters. So all of that stuff is so important, so my daughters don't have to settle for anything. What they're looking for is something like what they was raised around,
Yeah.
with their confidence. So yeah, because you just have I've seen it myself, young people out here dating, looking for their father,
Mhm.
and a lot of the stuff be, from coming from low self-esteem and abandonment and all of that stuff. So building your kids up and giving them confidence and talking about certain things and doing things a certain way definitely helps with confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to the dads because I have had the opportunity to witness my husband father in a way that I know will impact my children and help them build confidence, especially my boys, but also my daughter.
Mhm.
That it's just something that I could not do, right? Men
Yeah.
just have a very special gift. And so I definitely think that we're in a dad era for sure. Before I let you go though, Rickey, we know comedy is your thing. And
Mhm.
I think it's so funny because we always hear on the internet, we are just such an unserious people, right? Anytime something happens, whether it's tragedy, something in the world, somebody passed, we're always just laughing through the pain, right? Do you feel like comedy is something that we use to heal our souls? But then also, do you feel like sometimes we can suppress the things that maybe we need to go deeper on because we just kind of laugh through it because we have become so resilient?
Mhm. Yeah, that gets that last part of the question gets into the I was just having a conversation at the ER with a lady that just lost her nephew, her sister's son. Um, just letting them know that it's really okay to cry.
Hmm.
That crying actually is gonna help you feel better. It's like popping the cap off of a pressure cooker. Whatever as far as comedy put gas in the tank.
Hmm.
When I was down and out and was at my lowest, I can go on Facebook and watch any comedian, a scene from Coming to America, a scene from Martin with that Gina, that ain't no damn dog, which I had never seen. I was surprised that I had never seen that. Why I was crying, laughing at Martin beating up that little animal and they was out camping. I don't know how I missed that. Why did nobody tell me about that?
Like one of my favorite scenes.
When I tell you that wiped me out, but let me tell you what it did. It's healing.
Hmm.
Even me coming to do radio every morning is healing because I'm doing comedy because as well I'm making other people laugh, I'm laughing also.
Hmm.
I'm part of the joke. I'm making the jokes, you know. But yeah, we real serious people, but that's why you have that comedy face, the happy face, the sad face, because we get our comedy from pain.
Hmm.
As when my son died, but there's a lot of funny things around my son's death. That you talk about, dealing with funerals and family members and this, that, and the other, or whatever. We try to pull our comedy for something. And anybody out there that's grief stricken, that's going through grief, go to a comedy show, go to a comedy something and laugh so that you can heal. It's so important.
Hmm. Yeah. Is there anything else that, whether it's through lessons that you learn that you put in the book or just in this last year that you would want to share with our listeners today that you think would be beneficial for them?
Yeah, I want to make sure that everybody go out and get the book. The book is called Sideshow, and it's helping you deal with grief. Sideshow comes from what we were just talking about. Sideshow that is a song before your time. It came out in 1974. That's the year my dad died. By Blue Magic. It's about a clown that's performing, but he's sad. And it's
Hmm.
the saddest show in the land. So you make sure you listen to Sideshow when you get an opportunity, because that's what I named the book after. Because you on stage performing and doing jokes, but you crying on the inside. I have to cry sometime during a commercial break, or cry when I get off the air. Sometimes cry while on the air. Sometimes cry before I get on the air to get it out. Sometimes I have cried going to a performance just to get the cry out so I can perform. And
Yeah.
make sure that you get the book if you have lost a loved one, if you are in a grief process, if you haven't dealt with a grief from losing your loved one, especially those of you out there that have, lost a kid. This book is definitely a helpful tool that's going to help you get closer to God. It's going to help you grieve with a good story, and it's got a lot of good pointers in there, and it's scripture based. It's scripture based, and it's written how I speak, and I have it in audio. So you can go to my website or go to anywhere books are sold, and check out Rickey Smiley's Sideshow.
Yes, absolutely. I truly enjoyed it. I cracked up from beginning to end. I love the fact that you kept the humor in it. And to your point, when you talked about how when we first start funerals, it's the questions that we go through: who doing the body, who doing the
We
repast.
got the fun.
Every time.
All we need to know who we know who got the body, and then when you find out who got the body, when we get there, who who did the work on the body? They sure did a good job. Henrietta looked just like herself. Looked like she ain't been sick a day. Well, black people know they wipe. Black people will wipe you out. We need to know. And I put a video on my Instagram, on my Facebook page. That number two Usher boy, you will not get an obituary before the family. Try it. They're gonna have it in that little box, and
Yeah.
they keep those obituaries on lock until every single person that was in that line get an obituary. You will not see sit
Listen,
there and try to read the obituary before that family get there. How dare you?
I know every time somebody says on the internet, I just go on the now and I just feel like, ain't nobody told me nothing. And then
Ain't nobody told.
everybody to get mad, like we all just learn together, but I just have to say it. I gotta say it every time.
And then black folks, we're gonna stop. They're 106 years old, and you put on the obituary gone too soon.
Gone too.
Look, come on now. And then everybody got that one family member. He been in a gang, selling drugs, flipping old people out of wheelchairs. And first thing we put in the obituary, he received Christ at an early age.
Okay.
Ain't seen Christ, been around church since that day.
Lord, Lord, Lord. We are funny people. Well, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Y'all go get the book. And we will see you guys on the other side. Be sure to check out this interview on Buckeye Review. Thank you again, Rickey. We appreciate you.